Honduran Literature. Published December the 12th, 2017. Special characters are denoted as follows. And. Left and right parentheses. Honduran literature describes the literature birthed out of Honduras. The literary history of Honduras intersects with aspects of political and socio-economic atmosphere that has long been prevalent in Honduran history. In the Handbook of Latin American Literature, Salgado claims that the birth of Honduran literature begins with Fray José Trinidad Reyes, who founded the first University of Honduras. Unfortunately, the proliferation that was seen in other Central American countries did not appear in Honduras. Furthermore, because the country was under political unrest during much of its history, a great deal of the literature remains unpublished, thus unknown. In fact, Romanticism reaches Honduras at a later date than most other literature in the world, appearing in late 19th century and is seen in the work of Ramon Rosa. Once Romanticism moves into Honduras, the country's literature begins to take off. Authors from this time period are Manuel Molina Vigil, José Antonio Dominguez, and Carlos Federico Gutierrez, who was the author of the first Honduran novel titled Angelina. 1898. Influenced by the rest of Spanish America, Honduran literature experiments with modernism. Authors from this generation include Juan Ramón Molina and Fray Olanticios. Following this generation of literature was a group of writers who had a Creolist style where they searched for a Honduran identity. In addition, Creolist authors criticized Honduran politics. Marcos Carías Reyes, Carlos Izaguirre, José Fidel Duran, Argentina Díaz Lozano, Arturo Mejía Nieto, and Ramón Amaya Amador. In the following years there emerged several different generations of authors that are distinguished by their similarities and their time periods. Part 1. The generation from the dictatorship / the generation of 35. 1933 to 1949. Honduran culture throughout the 1930s to the 1950s centralized around the Tiburcio Carías dictatorship. Within this political climate emerged the generation of authors from Honduras named the generation from the dictatorship / the generation of 35, named specifically after the time period. Unlike earlier authors from Honduras, this generation of authors connected with the reality of the Honduran everyday lives, living in a society centralized on a political economy dominated by a foreign capitalist monopoly. During this historical period, the Honduran economy was run by banana plantations. Consequently, much of the writing from this time period was influenced by this socio-economic atmosphere. Specifically, this generation of authors was said to be born from a Honduran magazine titled Tegucigalpa, ran by Alejandro Castro. Authors from this generation are described by their lyrical tone and political themes. Authors from the generation from the dictatorship include Daniel Lainez, Jacobo Carcamo, Claudio Barrera, Constantino Suisnavar, Alejandro Castro H. Marcius Funes, Miguel R. Ortega, Oscar E. Flores, Raúl Gilberto Troches, Enrique Gómez, Marcos Carías Reyes, Clementina Suárez, and Argentina Díaz Lozano. Part 2. The founders of the new literature / the generation of 50 / vanguard generation. In the post-Tiburcio Carías and no dictatorship, the historical social climate did not change drastically, but the atmosphere in Honduras did experience a shift. With this new cultural shift, there was birthed a new generation of authors. Although there was not united by a common thread of themes throughout their work, there was a common theme of new literature. For this reason, the group was considered to be vanguard as they began to break previous molds for literature in Honduras. Being influenced by the general strike of 1954, this generation of authors shined light on a new group of people, the working class, lending to the group also being referenced as the social realism writers. This shift in writing was seen throughout Latin America, all of which were named differently accordingly. The new emergence of authors from this generation are as follows: Antonio José Rivas, Pompeo Vale, Roberto Sosa, Nelson Marin, Oscar Acosta, Marcos Carillas, Francisco Salvador, Saul Toro, Ramon O'Quelly, Hector Bermudez Miller, Oscar Castaneda Bates, Felipe Elviro Hos, David Moya Posas, Hector Bermudez Miller, Jamie Fontana, Miguel R. Ortega, Philadelphio Suazo, Angel Vale, Justiniano Vasquez, and Armando Zelaya. Part 3: La Generación de la Guerra / The Generation from the War. Within the time period of the founder of the new literature, there existed a separate group of authors. These authors claimed to break from the previous styles of writing from their predecessors. El Geraldo explains that during this time the authors no longer wrote about the rural life of Honduras, which dominated much of the earlier generations of writing. This generation of authors occurred after the Football War. 1969. Between Honduras and El Salvador. This generation of literature was consequently named after this historical event that impacted Honduran society. Emerging from a state of conflict, Bear explains that the generation hopes to break from the traditional form of literature to theater, narrative, and essay. Major authors from this generation include Eduardo Bear, 1940, Julio Escoto, 1944, and Rigoberto Paredes, 1948. Part 4: The New Generation. Although not directly influenced by a political event, during the late 80s and early 90s there emerges yet another generation of authors. The new generation of authors, which began to include more women, begins to question and write about machismo in the Honduran culture. Julio Escoto details that writers began to question their sexual liberties and political and social independence. This generation of authors no longer chooses to limit themselves and write about all aspects of social relations encountered in the human existence. Authors from this period include Helen Umana, Maria Eugenia Ramos, 1959, Galil Cardenas, 1945, Jose Luis Oviedo, Juan Pavan, Jose Adan Castilla, Leticia Doul, Jose Antonio Funes, Marta Susana Prieto, Fabricio Estrada, Giovanni Rodriguez, Leti Elvia, Mayra Oul, Salvador Madrid, Samuel Trigueros, and Cesar Indiano. Part 5: Contemporary Honduran Poetry by Women. Although having been repeated from other generations of authors, these women fit into a category of their own. Many of the women of this generation of poets discuss their connection with their homelands. In addition, they discuss the themes of motherhood, the power, among many other varying topics throughout their poetry. Contemporary female poets include Aida Sarbonch, Alejandra Flores Bermudez, Amanda Castro, Armida Garcia, Blanca Guifaro, Claudia Torres, Deborah Ramos, Elisa Logan, Francesca Randazzo, Indira Flamenco, Juan Pavan, Leti Elvia, Maria Eugenia Ramos, Myrna Rivera, Normandina Pagoda, Raquel Lobo, Rebecca Becerra, Sarah Salazar, Waldina Mejia, Xiomara Bu, and Yadira Eguigran. This recording is a derivative work from Wikipedia. For more information, please visit www.frogcast.org.